So I hem stitched the end of my weaving here, and now I have the beginning of the weaving. When I started the weaving, I wove fabric strips into it so that I could easily take it out and have fringe on the bottom. So what I'm going to do is hem stitch this side also. I don't have yarn hanging from the weft like I did with the other side. So what I will do, I've just threaded my tapestry needle, so you can see the needle I'm using has a blunt edge, so that's really important with weavings that you use a blunt edge or blunt tip needle so that the needle does not split the yarn. And I will just weave this in. I'm weaving it into the second pass where I started weaving yarn. So I'm just following the same pattern, and there's basically a tunnel that I'm weaving into. So you can see the end of the yarn. I'm going to pull it just a little bit past where that weaving is, and then I'm weaving it through the next pass. So here's the first woven line, and here's the second woven line. Or actually this was the first and this is the second. So I'm going back in through here. And just repeating that pattern. And because it's a warp face weaving, it's really easy to insert the needle back in. And so what that does is it just secures the yarn into the weaving. So now I can do the hem stitch. So I'm going on top, the outermost thread is underneath this thread, so I want to go underneath it first. Actually, I'm going under all of them. So I'm picking up 6 threads. So I have some other floats just hanging around. I'll deal with those after I get this off the back strap. So I have the end here where I did the hem stitch and I cut the yarn evenly, and then I still have the front now attached to the front bar of the back strap, but you can see now I have this hem stitch. So after I stitched the last row, I went back into that same spot where the previous bundle of the hem stitch was stitched into, and I just went through part of the weaving and pushed it through the back and trimmed it. So now I'll just cut this yarn off the back strap. And you can see if I started weaving right away, there are these little triangles here that I could just even out if I had yarn. But because I wanted fringe, I wove in with fabric because it's so much easier to take out than yarn. So I'm just starting by cutting these loops at the bottom of the weaving. And now I'm just pulling it from one side out and then from the other side. So I just hold on to the weaving and pull that weft out. So if you don't have fabric to do this method with, you can also use toilet paper. So now I'm just using the ruler to measure this. I see this indentation right here where it was woven before, so I'm using that as a guide because that's a 2-inch mark. And this is something I could have measured before I took the fabric out and just cut through it. So now I have the same length of fringe on both sides. There's a hem stitch. So now I need to weave all of these loose threads into the weaving just to clean it up. So I'm starting with these ones here. So I could have done this in the process of weaving, where I just make one more pass and put them in, but I didn't, so now I'm spending time to clean it up. So I just wove this supplemental yarn. I'm going back to the previous line where I wove it and down into the back of the weaving. And then I'm going to trim that on the back. If this is something that I was going to use as, like, say, a guitar strap or something, I would weave that further into the back instead of such a short amount, but because I'm not doing anything with it, I really just need it to be tucked away. So if you're planning to use something, you want to make sure when you're weaving things back in just to do like a pass going one direction and a pass going the other direction. So this was a weft change. So I just want to thread my needle. And now here's a problem where my thread is almost too short. And I will get to that with a supplemental to show you what to do. So I want to make sure if I pulled too tight, I want to pull it open just a little bit before I trim it. So this supplemental here is really short, so I can't thread my needle and be able to put it through because the yarn's so short. So what I need to do is get my needle into the weaving where I want that supplemental to go. Then I lower it until the eye is really close. The eye of the needle is really close to that yarn. And then I just pull that yarn through the needle. Now I can take that needle and pull it through the weaving, and I'm holding the yarn at the top of the weaving here, the side of the weaving where I need it to go through, and I just pull that out right there. So I'm going to keep doing this with all of these threads, and then I'll have a finished weaving.